Three men stood near the edge of the training mats, adjusting their black belts with quiet confidence. They had trained together for years, won local tournaments, and believed they had seen every kind of student walk through the dojo doors. When the front door opened and a new student stepped inside, they exchanged amused glances. She was a black woman in her early 30s, carrying a worn gym bag over one shoulder. She greeted everyone with a calm smile, bowed respectfully toward the instructor, and quietly filled out the registration form. She wasn't loud, she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She simply looked ready to learn, but the three black belts had already made up their minds. One whispered she'll probably quit after the warm-up. Another laughed first week she won't last the hour. The third smirked hope. She's not expecting special treatment. They didn't know that every word reached her ears. She heard the laughter, she heard the assumptions. But she didn't react instead. She tied her white belt carefully around her waist, adjusted her uniform, and stepped onto the mat with complete focus. The head instructor, Sensei Nakamura, welcomed everyone and began class with basic stretching and movement drills. The new student followed every instruction with precision. Her movements were smooth, balanced, and surprisingly controlled for someone supposedly taking her first class. The black belts noticed one raised an eyebrow. "She's athletic," he admitted, "but technique wins fights." Another replied confidently. As class continued, students practiced breakfalls, footwork, and basic defensive positioning. The new student never rushed. She never showed off, she simply listened carefully and repeated every drill almost perfectly. Sensei Nakamura watched silently. There was something familiar about her movement. Years of teaching had sharpened his instincts. He recognized discipline when he saw it. When partner drills began, the three black belts deliberately avoided choosing her. They paired with each other instead, leaving another beginner to train with her. Within minutes, the beginner felt comfortable. She explained each movement patiently. She encouraged instead of criticizing. The instructor smiled. Leadership often revealed itself long before rank did. Near the end of class, Sensei Nakamura gathered everyone together. We'll finish today's session with friendly challenge matches. The room buzzed with excitement. He continued, "Our newest student has agreed to participate." The three black belts couldn't hide their amusement. One even chuckled loudly. "This won't take long." Sensei looked directly at them. "You three," they straightened proudly. "You each face." Her laughter spread across the dojo. Most students expected short demonstrations, perhaps a few seconds each. Nothing more. The first black belt stepped forward confidently. He bowed, she returned the bow respectfully. The timer started, he rushed forward aggressively, expecting fear instead. She calmly shifted her weight. His momentum worked against him. Within seconds, she redirected his balance, trapped his arm, and executed a flawless shoulder throw. He landed flat on the mat. Before he understood what had happened, she transitioned smoothly into a controlled submission hold. He tapped 7 seconds, the room fell silent. Students looked at one another in disbelief. The second black belt frowned. "Luck," he muttered. He stepped onto the mat, determined to prove himself this time. He circled carefully, he attacked with more caution. She stayed relaxed, every movement looked effortless. As he reached for a grip, she countered instantly. Her footwork created a perfect angle. His balance disappeared. She swept his legs cleanly before he could recover. She secured another submission, tapped 9 seconds. Now no one was laughing. The third black belt wasn't smiling anymore. He had won regional competitions. He believed experience would finally make the difference. The instructor reset the timer. The match began unlike the others. He stayed patient. He studied her movement. She did the same for several seconds. Neither attacked. Then he launched a fast combination. She slipped outside his line of attack, controlled his wrist, rotated beneath his shoulder, used his own force against him. He crashed gently onto the mat. Before he could escape, she locked a precise choke. He resisted for only a moment. Then he tapped 12 seconds. All three black belts had been submitted. Combined time less than 1 minute. Complete silence filled the dojo. The instructor stopped the timer. No one spoke. The three men slowly stood. Their confidence had vanished. One student finally whispered, "Who is she?" Sensei Nakamura smiled. "I thought some of you might ask." He invited the woman to stand beside him. She bowed politely. "My name is Maya." She paused. "This is my first day at this dojo." The students looked confused. Sensei continued, "Maya has trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 14 years. Gasps spread through the room. She also holds black belts in both judo and Japanese jiu-jitsu. The three men stared in disbelief. Sensei wasn't finished. She has coached women's self-defense programs across several states, competed internationally, and recently moved here after accepting a new job. Nobody moved, nobody even blinked. Every assumption made earlier suddenly felt painfully embarrassing. Maya smiled gently. I wore a white belt today because every dojo has different traditions. She looked toward the three men. I believe respect is earned by actions, not by the color around someone's waist. The words landed harder than any technique she had demonstrated. One of the black belts lowered his head. I'm sorry. The second nodded. We judged you before even meeting you. The third stepped forward. I owe you an apology. Maya accepted each one without hesitation. Thank you. She wasn't interested in humiliating them. She had already made her point. Class ended shortly afterward, but almost nobody left immediately. Students surrounded Maya with questions. How long had she trained? What tournaments had she entered? How had she stayed so calm? She answered every question patiently. She never bragged, never exaggerated, never mocked the men she had defeated. Instead, she shared stories about difficult training sessions, painful injuries, and years of learning from failure. Talent opens the first door. She explained, character decides how far you go. Those words stayed with everyone. The following week, attendance at the dojo increased. Students returned with renewed motivation. Even the three black belts changed noticeably. Instead of standing together making jokes, they began helping beginners. They offered encouragement, corrected techniques, respectfully listened more than they spoke. Sensei noticed everything. Months passed. Maya became one of the dojo's most respected instructors. Children loved learning from her because she was patient. Adults admired her because she explained complex techniques simply. Older students appreciated her humility. She treated every person exactly the same, regardless of age, race, gender, or rank. One evening after class, a teenage girl approached Maya quietly. I almost didn't come today. Why? I was scared people would judge me. Maya smiled. They might. The girl looked surprised. But that's their decision. She gently tapped the student's heart. This is yours, she continued. Never let someone else's opinion become your limit. The teenager nodded. Years later, that same student would become a national champion. She often credited Maya with changing her life. Word about the unforgettable first day spread far beyond the dojo. Visitors came from neighboring schools, hoping to train with the woman who had submitted 3 black belts in under a minute. Some expected arrogance instead. They found kindness. One visiting instructor asked her the secret behind her success. She answered with a simple sentence. I stopped trying to prove people wrong. He waited for more. She smiled. I started trying to become better than I was yesterday. The instructor wrote those words in his notebook. Eventually, the dojo organized a charity self-defense seminar led by Maya. Hundreds attended. Families, police officers, teachers, college students, single parents, teenagers, everyone trained together. The 3 former skeptics volunteered throughout the event. They helped register participants, cleaned equipment, and assisted beginners. At the end of the seminar, one of them addressed the crowd. I want to share something. The room became quiet when Maya first walked into this dojo. I judged her before she spoke a single word. He looked toward her. I thought my black belt made me important. He shook his head. It didn't. What mattered was humility. What mattered was respect. What mattered was being willing to learn. He bowed deeply toward Maya. She returned the bow. The audience applauded, not because someone had lost, but because someone had grown. Sensei Nakamura watched proudly from across the room. Later that evening, he placed a framed quote near the dojo entrance. Every student would read it before stepping onto the mat. It said, leave your shoes at the door. Leave your ego with them years afterward. New students often heard the legendary story. Some believed it was exaggerated until they met Maya. She never mentioned that first day unless someone asked. When they did, she simply laughed. The fastest victory wasn't submitting 3 black belts. People looked puzzled. What was it? Then she answered softly, helping 3 strangers become better people, because in martial arts, the greatest champion isn't the one who wins the quickest fight. It's the one who transforms defeat into wisdom, pride into humility, and strangers into family. The lesson from that unforgettable day spread far beyond one dojo. It reminded everyone that appearances reveal very little. Assumptions often hide ignorance, and true strength is measured not by intimidation, but by discipline, compassion, and self-control. Respect should never depend on race, gender, age, or first impressions. It should be given freely and reinforced through character. The next time someone walks through a door for the very first time, remember my story. The quietest person in the room may possess the greatest experience. The humblest student may become the greatest teacher. And the strongest warrior is often the one who never feels the need to announce their strength at all.